Hi, good evening, everyone. So thank you so much for joining this evening for this webinar, Classroom 2.0. And we are so happy to have partnered with Toppr School OS, who have supported us in building many such events themselves, as well as partnering with us. We'll be we'll be covering different topics, but we'll be kind of starting with that. We are just waiting for a couple of minutes for the third panelist, and we'll start in few minutes. Meanwhile, I'll just give a quick kind of overview of the flow that we are expecting today. So the topic will typically cover that what all are the effective integration between pedagogy and technology, and the school leaders will talk about their journey during this time, especially, and what the future, how they see the future ahead. And we'll also talk majorly about how to take advantage of technology that is in available to us. During the webinar, we'll be having Q&A. This would be towards the end of the webinar, but during the webinar, we'll be having a lot of polls to get the pulse of the audience as well. And there will be a feedback form at the end of the webinar, which will also be associated with the participation certificate. So if once we have the details, we can send that to you as well. So thank you so much for joining. And before I move on to uh, the next section, basically, I think we can start with the introduction. Sudhir, maybe from you, and just a quick intro for all of us to know you and your current job better. So please, over to you.
Thanks, Utkarsh, and thank you to the team Toppr and EdTech Review for this opportunity to be speaking this August panel. Well, to introduce myself, I'm Sudhir Kukreja, one of the co-founders of Credence International Schools. We are now a 10-year-old organization, a chain of schools established in 2011, operating some 9 schools across India. I think one of our most important USPs across our schools has been the tech enabled start. We were a next generation school right from our day one. All our schools were an Apple enabled school right from day one, whether it was a teacher or a student or the administration. So I think technology has been a part of our birth and the genes from the day one when we started off. And I'm glad to be speaking and sharing my ideas on whatever we've done in terms of technology integration in our schools, in terms of our teachers' upgradations and various initiatives that we've taken from student perspective, or you call it from teacher training perspective. It has helped us take leaps and bounds in terms of the academic objectives that we intend to achieve for our children and for our parents who depend on us for grooming their kids. So I think as we go along during this session, I look forward to exchanging some ideas and hopefully we'll be able to add some value to the audience as well.
Thanks, Sudhir. Over to you, Raj. Would love to hear from you.
Sure, Utkarsh. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining this webinar. Really happy to be here. So I am Rajshekhar Ratrey. I am Senior Vice President of Product Management at Toppr. I've spent close to 11 years solving problems in education with the help of technology. And since last 6 years, I've been building Toppr.com. My most recent focus has been building solutions for educators and teachers. And I've been really fortunate to work with many teachers and educators from around the world to understand and solve key problems what they're facing today. So yeah, looking forward for this webinar, and I hope there's something there's something for all of us to learn today.
Great. Thank you so much. So we have actually to make it engaging for the audience. Also, we have actually prepared kind of a video which talks about the amazing stories from across the country, and teachers will talk about their best practices that they have followed to make classes more engaging. So we'll just begin by this video, and before we step into the questions that I have for the panelists, and while Dr. Amrita joins as well. So Shantanu, if you can play that.
The last 1 year has been a learning experience for all of us, especially for teachers. From adopting new digital tools to using innovative ways to make classrooms more engaging, teachers have been the real heroes of the last academic session.
A quick look at some examples.
I give them challenges in forms of games. It could be in the form of Kahoot quiz during my classrooms. Whenever I get time, when I know that my children need more of movement, so I get into this game mode where I start playing games with them.
I begin my lesson with an online platform like Answer Garden to know how much my students already know about the concept.
So for example, Padlet. Padlet helps children to collaborate and learn, which help peer learning also.
So all these online platforms have really helped me to make my classes more engaging.
During online session, the most difficult concept was to make them understand pictograph. So basically, pictograph is a visual representation and an exposure of graphs to the young children.
During my English language class, I had asked my students to get a fruit right from their refrigerator and just place it in front of the screen. That they had to describe this particular fruit in terms of the 5 senses.
While teaching the integers part, as it's a new topic, I used group discussion. So I divided my students into breakout rooms and asked them to first of all discuss about those properties and then present it in the form of a mind map. So they were engaged also, and they also used their thinking that this is the activity and this is how we need to present it.
So, Dr. Amrita, welcome. We were waiting for you, and meanwhile, we had this video planned to just celebrate the amazing stories from across the country by the teachers and their practices. So, over to you. Just a quick intro before we jump on to the next section, talking more about the core theme. You're on mute.
Thank you, Karsh. And technology can be fun at times. It can be while I think the system advises to go with Chrome, when I eventually tried Safari, it worked better. So here we are. So technology can really create funny things, and really happy to see 2-3 of my teachers actually speaking just now in the little intro that you had or tribute that you had of teachers, how they've been using stuff. And true, it's been quite a journey for, I think, every teacher. To quickly introduce myself, I think I'm a teacher first and then anything else. And that's how I see it. Started teaching over 25 years ago, long back actually with higher education, and then later moved to schools. And then now I'm teaching children as well as adults, I guess, because I'm largely into training and so on. Working for GEMS Education, and I'm executive principal for GEMS International School in Gurgaon, and also as director education for various school projects and other initiatives that we have across India. Over to you, Utkarsh.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro. Dr. Amrita, we just saw how teachers are solving a lot of these challenges while conducting online classes. So before we just move on to the next part, we would love to hear from the audience on via the poll. So what has been your biggest challenge in conducting online classes? So we'll just wait for a few seconds for the poll to kick in, and then jump on to the next bit. Just wanted to announce that there is a question panel on your right. You can, during the webinar, just put in the questions that you want to ask the panelists, and we can, towards the end, we can take some of these questions and seeing the time in hand. Yeah. Okay. So I see some interesting stats already. So close to 60% talk about student engagement being the biggest challenge, and I think that's exactly the next section. So we all have been hearing about student engagement as a common challenge in physical classrooms, definitely, and I think all the more in the online classroom. So how this definition has changed over the years, and how the walls between the in-class engagement and after-class learning have blurred. So we would love to jump onto this and talk about some of the challenges related to student engagement in online learning. So over to you, Sudhir, and Dr. Amrita. First, over to you to talk about this. Yeah.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
All right. So yes, engagement, has been a challenge only if any teacher thinks that the things that we did in a physical classroom need to be replicated, so to speak, in an online classroom. It is certainly not the same. It's a very, very different platform. And children are not, the tactile reference to a great extent is missing, apart from all that emotional connect and that they have when we are physically there and so on. And very often what you see is, the teachers visible only till here, or people have, I'll just do this, maybe something like this. It's not the same as when your actual hand gestures and movements, everything is visible. So these little things which may not seem important are actually very important, is what lots and lots of research tells us. Apart from that, it's a different world. So it has a different set of resources that you need to use. Just like in your physical classroom, you would use a whole different, physical resources. Online, you do need to use online resources like Kahoots, quizzes, gaming options. There is so much out there to make learning more personalized. But then, and Padlets and whatnot. So some of my teachers were actually talking about it, blending in drama and education, because when we are not physically there, we really need to make it way more interesting. Blending in genuine inquiry, because future belongs to the curious, as we say, and learning happens only when curiosity is genuinely ignited in children. And that, I think, is the most important part, job of the teacher to do. If I'm really able to make them think, they will learn, they will explore. It's a sea of information out there. What is important is for children to be able to really pick out the right information, the thing that we want probably them to learn, and then they will learn way more than probably you and I did, or still do, because they're young minds, they're more curious, quite naturally also. So all that, different kind of training is required. And if you have that, children actually love this space. Over the last 2 years, we've seen that so much more is possible. The classroom has transcended the idea of space and time quite literally, and so much more is possible. As in, we've been having some exchange programs. We've been having, so children are no longer just talking or communicating or collaborating with each other in one limited classroom, but actually across the globe with children in different languages. A week from now, we have a virtual tour of a certain thing, a museum in the school, and so on and so forth. So every other day, teachers are planning lessons with virtual tours, with visits. The checking or assessments happen with gaming. Which child today, or you and I mean, I want to be the child right there and enjoy all of this. Or a class of French. Now I have my friends in France who are maybe writing letters to me in English as a child, and I'm writing in French, and then we are trying to communicate, and then we are trying to see, okay, what's working for me to learn your language, and what's working for you to learn my language. So lots of all this co-teaching, co-learning with and communicating cross-culturally is happening thanks to technology.
Yeah.
We cannot go back to mass education systems. This is what is needed, and this is Education 4.0. There are not just one, but many futures of education, because there are multiple dimensions, and that will continue.
Awesome. So I'll get back to you for some of these tools in the practices that you mentioned. Over to you, Sudhir. Just wanted to understand some of your success stories where teachers have used novel techniques to make classrooms more engaging, and how has the experience been?
Well, thanks, Utkarsh. I think I'm going to add up to what Dr. Amrita just mentioned here. Engagement of students, I think across the schools is very critical, and it was a big challenge for us, specifically given the DNA of our schools, or I would say maybe the little history of our schools, because most of our schools are schools which we've started in the last 3, 4, 5 years. So we have a majority of students in our pre-primary and primary education classes as compared to what you would probably have in the higher classes. So engaging these 3-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old was a big challenge. I think the first biggest brainstorming session that we ever had was basically how do you keep this 4-year-old child in front of a screen for, let's say, a 2-hour or 3-hour or maybe even an hour of our long period was basically the biggest challenge. And I think that's where the most innovation took place. Technology has obviously been the rescuer in the entire space. Our teachers had taken up this onus, and at the same time, I think I'd like to extend a very big kudos to the effort that's been put up by the parents of these kids, because I think the biggest achievement that we would probably call for our schools across the board is to engage more than I think about 2,000 plus kids who are and their parents who are there in the pre-primary classes, which is where the first 3 months were literally critical for us, where we actually created a platform. Yes, we were conducting classes through Google Meet and Zooms and everything of the world, but at the same time, what was very critical is that a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old child to sit in front of the screen on the other side, and still, initially the parents were really skeptical about whether the child will be able to sit, whether they'll be able to, understand, or will recognize the teacher. How does it, feel like finding 30 small windows on your screen and trying to identify your peers in the classroom? So all that was really amazing in the initial days. And I think what we created in those days is a parent engagement plan. So if we had 4 lectures planned for every day, we had a parent involved in one or the other way in every lecture for initial 5 to 10 minutes. And thankfully, it was a complete lockdown last year. Parents were working from home and there was a lot of free time. Maybe there were people available. So it worked in our favor, and that could actually create a lot of cohesive learning for kids, which helped them, appreciate each other's challenges. I mean, even when the teachers were trying to connect with those young kids, parents could understand as to what is the amount of effort that's going into that whole exercise of keeping the kids engaged and, hooked to this, or even having their attention and not making them scream or cry or something like that. So that was at a pre-primary level, where I would say it was the cohesive involvement of the teachers, the parents and the students, of course, which made a big deal. At a primary and a middle school level, which was another big chunk that we had, I think technology was a big rescuer. And at the same time, I think this entire period has come to us like a blessing in disguise. So for the last 3 years, 4 years, we've been wanting to experiment with a teaching where we do not depend on, we do not depend or we do not restrict ourselves to the limitations of a textbook. So I think Utkarsh and I have had some discussions in past where I've been advocating teaching without textbooks, because personally, I believe textbooks limits the scope of learning that you could probably offer a child, and you kind of compartmentalize that. Okay, this is what you need to learn particular topic, and you kill the curiosity at a certain level. And I think where teachers were forced to go technology, using Google, using all digital resources, etc. So it led to a huge amount of curiosity being developed in the kids, which was practically endless. A child could ask you anything when you're just opening, so we resorted to a lot of resources being used from National Geographic and Discovery channels and History Channel documentaries and whatnot. So those things led to, various questions being asked. We resorted to a lot of, things. So there was a tunnel which was inaugurated in Ladakh region. We took a session on that. There's a biggest railway bridge coming up. We took a session on that. So those are the things which made the kids think in a direction and touch the dimensions which are practically not possible when you're doing a syllabus inside a classroom. So that is where I feel this entire thing has changed the entire paradigm. And I probably see that part connected to our topic for the day, which we very rightly termed as Classroom 2.0. I believe this is where it has become an opportunity for all the school leaders, for all the teachers, for all the parents, and for the kids to go beyond the old paradigms in which we were used to operating schools or managing classrooms or delivering lectures or even accepting from a student's point of view those lectures. So it's like this entire period has thrown us as an opportunity to go beyond those restrictions, explore new avenues, and use technology to the best of its level. We've integrated more than 500 apps in our curriculum, which has are available, sometimes free, sometimes paid. So that is what I guess in the course of this discussion I'd like to elaborate a little more on. Sure. But yes, broadly, I guess the new dimensions is the most exciting part, and that has helped us keep kids engaged. So we've had some element of novelty in every week. So that is the kind of discussion that has happened. What should we do next year? Next week, part shows and whatnot, everything has gone into that process.
I would love to dive deeper during the webinar on the tools. Again, as I said, over to you, Raj, because your experience, how have teachers and how can teachers improve in-class engagement? I would love to hear from you, your perspectives as well.
Sure, Utkarsh. So first of all, I think Dr. Amrita and Sudhir, they have outlined this entire thing really well. I think I could see a lot of learning for myself there. But here's my bit. So like over last 2 years, I have attended and observed more than like 500 live classes. I've been present there from attendance to the end of the class. And what I've learned that the students enjoy learning with friends. I mean, that's the one thing which is absolutely clear to me, that at a fundamental level, they enjoy learning with friends. In fact, they enjoy anything doing with friends. For example, there have always been a lot of games, but students became more addicted to PUBG simply because they could play it with friends. So I think we can take that learning and extend it to our education also, and make maybe our education also that addictive. So in all those classes which I've been attending, I could see that the live quizzes is a big hit. I mean, it's a no-brainer that any class, if you do a live quiz, kids really love it, they participate. And because they are so much engaged in the quiz, I'm sure there's a lot of takeaway and a lot of learning for them during those things. And fortunately, there are a lot of tools to conduct online quizzes and such kind of things on whatever platform you are using. And if you have reader board with it, then you create a healthy competitive environment in the classroom. So even that small activity can change the tone of the class, can change the joy, the joy index of the classroom. The other aspect which I saw working really well in few of the classes is, dividing students in smaller group and asking them to make something. And if you look at fundamental level, this is again allowing them to collaborate with friends, allowing them to learn with friends. And I think if you do anything under that philosophy, it really helps students to be really participative in the class and be really engaged in the classroom. And like, even if you, let's say, don't have access to such kind of tools where you can conduct quizzes or create small rooms like breakout rooms, etc., but you can still create your lectures, you can create your lesson plan along with the lines which can encourage more student participation. And so but I don't think it will change overnight. And it takes time before students get really comfortable in the classroom. They get comfortable, their shyness and the hesitation goes away. And then they start participating in the activities which you perform. So it takes time. But as long as we are consistent with the lectures, we are consistent with the lesson planning, keeping in mind that I want to drive participation, I think eventually the engagement, healthy engagement comes in the classroom.
Thanks a lot, Raj. I think we all agree with the kind of ideas that you mentioned. But to implement these ideas, I would love to hear from Sudhir and Dr. Amrita on what role exactly should owners or directors or principals play to enable teachers to make these classrooms engaging, and how do we achieve that? Basically, some strategies around that to bring a consensus on all of it.
Utkarsh, if I may, I really like the way Mr. Raj just put it, that children learn with friends. All the rest, the way you aligned, I really like that fact, and that's so true. Learning happens when children are comfortable, when they are happy, and when they are that is when actual learning can really take place, and which is why I think all these tools, apps, as Sudhir said, sometimes paid, sometimes free, all the apps that we as teachers have been able to sort of literally get hold of. But the whole thing, to answer Utkarsh's question, how does management really support this in this whole thing? It's essentially actually a disruption. And as we all as educators today know, a happy disruption. I think any change really needs some kind of a trigger. And I think for education, this became one. But whenever any change is happening, any kind of transition is happening, and the teachers, the children, everybody is learning in the process, there needs to be a lot of scope for experimenting, for trying out, okay, this is working for me, this is not working for me. If a teacher feels that, I found something new, oh, I found Neopod today, or I found this new app today, or I found Read Theory today, or I want to use immersive reader in a different way in my classroom today. And she's not scared. She knows that if she uses, just in case it doesn't work, oh, what happens? That shouldn't be there. She knows that, my principal or the team behind me or the management, they have my back. If it, just in case something doesn't work, they will help me. They will be there. They will stand for me. And if I'm trying out something, I'm the power of, because why do I want to do something new needs to be thought through whenever we're attempting any kind of change. And then the power of yet, okay, this didn't work probably this time as well I imagined or planned. What do I change in this that it will work better? As Raj also mentioned that he's observing all these lessons end to end. It's so important for any management to really observe lessons, be there, not as an observer, not as someone to judge, but to really genuinely do assessment for learning. Where are we going right and where are we going wrong? What's working in the classroom? What's not working? So all that is so critical. We used to have flipped learning. We used to have all this, but then which part of it is now working? Were we flipping it in certain ways which were earlier involved technology at home and not during the classroom, because then they were face to face? Do we now need to flip it a little differently when our textbook is at home? And so when they are on screen, they are there, but otherwise not. Again, as Sudhir mentioned, smaller groups really make a difference. Early childhood in particular, you need a different strategy altogether. So all those aspects are very critical, and the management has to understand that one size fits all is certainly not the answer. Every year group has a different kind of challenge in this new setting, and a different kind of pedagogy is required, and it's literally being invented as we go. And therefore it's very important to and it was heartening to see 2-3 teachers speaking there, and out of I don't know how many, you must have selected their videos. So if those got there, I think it's a proud moment for me that the teachers, whatever they are saying, whatever they're going out and doing, why are they doing is because they know that everybody in our management really encourages invention, innovation, trying out. Everybody is part of the CPD process. Everybody is really the leader, it's not a top-down approach.
Yeah. Definitely. And Sudhir, maybe a quick input from your side on the support that Dr. Amrita mentioned, also from the management to the teachers.
Well, in my opinion, I've always believed the management of the school is somebody who's shouldering the responsibility of nurturing the thought process, nurturing the philosophy of the school. And I think that's been our endeavor, our effort throughout these places. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the session in my introduction, we've always been tech oriented. We've always wanted our teachers to upgrade. We've always wanted our kids. If I may help recall, I think I was a part of one of the EdTech conferences 2-3 years ago, and I mentioned something where we were that time 2 or 3 years ago, we were experimenting with something called as a classroom website. Maybe it will be probably there in some of your archives long back. We've discussed in one of your physical conferences. Those websites really helped us. So even today, when we recruit teachers, our first parameter to check after the basics of the subject knowledge and various qualifications is that how open to change and embracing new elements is a teacher. So I'll always ask my HR people, is this or that teacher trainable? That's my most important aspect. Is she open to learning some new ideas? That's what is the most important part. So I believe as management, once you give the direction to the team, once you provide them with those resources, once you invest in that training, it gives a long-term dividend. So like I mentioned, we invested in class level websites for all our schools, made all the kids participate and contribute to that website. Those websites are being managed by the teachers since 4 years now. So that thing has literally become a huge hit as far as our schools are concerned, because every kid has his own repository of things. And in fact, this year we've extended to a student level website where every child is maintaining his own archives of learning and whatever he's picking up from his teaching learning processes. So that I believe is the most important aspect as far as the management is concerned. Utkarsh, if I may take the liberty of taking a question from the audiences from my previous day. Somebody's asked a question, have you ever tried studying without a textbook?
I think we can
respond to that one. That's amazing.
No, definitely we'll take the questions towards the end. So definitely this is one of the questions we'll remember till the end. So meanwhile, I just want to shift gears and talk about, because Dr. Amrita mentioned something about after school learning also, right? So after class learning. So what are the enablers for after class learning? Raj, your perspective on that maybe.
Sure, Utkarsh. So first thing that if you have like excellent in-class experience, the kids going home and doing something after class, the chances of that is a lot more higher. So that is one thing which you should keep in mind. And let's assume that we did an excellent class. We did a very fun class for student. I think there are a lot of engaging learning content, engaging videos, activities, simulations, games. There are a lot of such content already is available, which teachers can use and simply assign them as a form of homework or assignment, which kids can finish at home. But the larger problem here is, how would teacher know whether it's working? How would they know whether I asked them to work on this, whether the student worked on it, whether he actually learned from it, whether he enjoyed it, how much time did he spend? I think there's a lack. I think teachers do not have eyes that what are the kids doing at home, and that for me is slightly bigger problem. If we solve that, then teachers will be able to know that where the students are spending their time, what are they doing, are they spending more time in a subject, and then teacher can also adapt to it. They can change their path, they can change the assignments, they can change their activities. So I think helping teachers with the visibility of what kids are doing at home can really help us get to better after class engagement. So that is one. The tracking is very important. The engaging learning content is important, and this is where the parents also come in picture, because I think parents are their participation can help completion of those modules. At least that discipline. I mean, everyone knows that once you solve the discipline, a lot of problems get solved by itself. So parents are the one who can help us build the discipline. Teachers are the one who can have an eye what's happening inside and keep on iterating their modules, keep on iterating their projects to make it more engaging, more fun. I think that's how we can solve the after class learning.
Awesome. So I think we have spoken about student engagement in this section, and I would love the audience to answer in what ways have they tried increasing student engagement during their online lectures. So maybe just a few seconds for them to respond to this, and then we move on to the next part. I think it's definitely building up well, because it's all connected to the core themes, and I'm just liking the different perspectives I'm getting from all three panelists, because of the diverse experience in kind of diverse practices. Yeah, okay. So I can see definitely, I think one of the things that all three agreed on polls, quizzes is getting the highest vote. So meanwhile, it is increasing. I'll just move on to the next part of the discussion that I want to cover, and before that, just let's show you a few tools on School OS that can be used to engage children in the classroom. So we have this video for you to view.
Over the years, the schooling system has constantly evolved. In the light of recent challenges, the teaching community has also evolved significantly, and Toppr is helping teachers face these new challenges with ease. Say hello to Toppr School OS. Our interactive online teaching classes have made it easy for the teachers to capture the students' attention and imagination with the help of digital content, polls, quizzes, and interactive whiteboards.
So what we are doing is we are just simply dividing a whole into different parts. This is known as fraction.
Toppr School OS lets you have fun, and along with that, it helps you build and nurture a happy and an active environment.
Okay, can you do it like this? Ding ding ding. No, nobody is able to do just like me. Oh, Tanvi has done it. Yeah.
Teachers on OS explain those concepts which are hard to visualize with ease with our built-in interactive tools like simulations, presentations, and activities.
We are going to make it 1 by 4. Now we have 4 squares visible on this one square sheet. Are you able to see it?
So come experience the power of the new revolutionary learning system. Experience Toppr School OS.
Awesome. So I think in the first poll, we also saw some of the people responding. Close to 20% people talked about syllabus coverage being as a challenge as well, and we want to talk about that. So we all realize that teaching and learning has been confined to a few hours of virtual classrooms, and this has led to limited interaction time. So we feel that this will continue to be a deterrent to syllabus completion. And I just want to understand from the school leaders we have here. Sudhir, maybe you can share what steps did your school take for 100% syllabus completion?
Well, Utkarsh, my thoughts could be a little, I would say, attracting over here. As a school leader, and I would say as an educationist first, I haven't really been bothered about syllabus completion ever in my life. And I've really encouraged all my teachers doing that, because I believe when I stand inside the classroom, it really doesn't matter how much I cover. What matters is what am I covering and how am I covering it. So I think at the start of the year, this concern was discussed in all our meetings. Do we need to cut down on the syllabus? Shall we take care of the chapters? We had calls from the teachers and parents, whether we'll be able to cover the syllabus. Are we going to cover everything? So there were umpteen number of questions with a simple nutshell that are you going to cover the entire syllabus? I personally addressed, I think, about 10 to 12 parent orientations and parent meetings, where I try to sensitize people to the fact that what is important for a child is to understand what he's being taught, rather than defining that, okay, these are the 10 things which are to be taught. If I were to ask this question to this entire forum who's available here, how many of us do we really remember how many chapters we studied in our school, what topics we covered? Because at the end of the day, like I was mentioning, I'm going back to the textbook reference which I did. 20 chapters in the textbook is not the end of the world. That's not completing your entire learning process. So it is immaterial whether you're able to cover 20 or 18 or 17 or you make it 23. You might just go ahead and cover 10 additional topics. What matters is the depth of the topic. What matters is your ability as a teacher to develop a curiosity in a child and his ability to learn on his own. with times ahead, I think what we are talking about is a self-learning environment for a child. We need to make him capable of learning on his own, exploring on his own, knowing the tools, understanding the environment in the world which is dominated by information around us with all Googles and social media of the world. I think today we are not short of information. What is important is what needs to be taught, how it needs to be taught. So I personally, as a school leader, have always given my teachers a freedom. Forget about the syllabus. Try and do justice to whatever maximum you can. And I think that is what parents also have, in our system at least, have started to understand that what is important is that you're covering. And somewhere or the other, I think it's not that we've not covered the syllabus. We've always achieved it beyond 80, 90, and even 100% in different cases. But I think what we've given priority is to the child's understanding levels and his ability to grow, learn and grow, rather than just focusing that, okay, I have to cover this 20 chapters. That has really never been the motive.
No, I think that exactly adds to what I wanted to kind of, I would say, extract from leaders like you, because the amount of focus that is given to this, but at the same time, how deep you go into this and how you, what's your take on this? So thanks, Sudhir, for those insights. And I would love to understand from Dr. Amrita also the perspective that she has.
Yeah, so I actually, I'm quite in agreement with Sudhir on this actually. The only thing that I would add to what he's already said, we have to understand no matter what is there in the syllabus, the jobs that these children or the kind of life, leave alone jobs, the kind of life that will be there in, let's say, let's not go too far, let's just go till 2030 also. 85% of jobs haven't yet been invented. So whatever we are teaching them, we don't know what will be useful to them 10 years from now. So what we really need to prepare these children today, if we want them prepared for life and a good career for later years, is the ability to learn how to learn, and really understand the processes of how the mind works, and really understand every possible concept in depth. Now, at the same time, it's very important to ensure that there's no learning loss, because when we probably started out a year ago or more, this was about, everybody probably thought this was going to be there for like 6 months or so. But now we know this is way long term, almost 2 years, probably children will be on online modes. So learning loss is huge. Even within the summer months, it happens, and it's an old concept every educator knows. But we can't, and if sometimes parents think that, it's okay, it's an early childhood class, I can teach at home. Maybe the parent can, maybe they can't. The problem is that they may not be trained for the real skills that the child really needs to develop and does develop in a school with trained faculty members who are trained to do this. So learning outcomes, what learning outcomes are we meeting? Keeping that in mind, they're not again defined by the textbook. Every publisher can put different things in a textbook. And the textbook may say whatever is not necessarily aligned to a certain curriculum. For instance, CBSE barely says anything below grade 9. Schools are very free. The concept, this is the syllabus for 9, 10, 11, and 12, and this is what the child should be ready for the board exam. For that, whatever CBSE, for instance, had to do, they did that. IB, whatever they had to do, they did. Different boards, I'll say, they did that. But below that, it's about ensuring that year on year, whatever we do, the concepts become clearer and clearer, and there is a proper sequential learning or proper scaffolding happening over the years by the time the child has to appear for that external entity exam. And if we are looking at external benchmarking standards alongside not just our internal own assessment, and we are really ensuring genuine progress for each child. So there may be 30, 20 children in one class, 25 children, whatever. In early childhood, we've divided into groups of 7 or 8 each because small groups work better at that age. But how every school has to figure out a way of what's working most effectively for them, and that varies. No child's progress should be hampered due to whatever. So every child was here. This is what he or she knew and was able to easily do. At the end of each lesson, has this child progressed, made some tangible, genuine progress? How have we assessed that? And has each child made progress? If just a few children did, then we're not being able to do it. So that whether we use after school work or in school work, asynchronous, synchronous lessons, flipped learning, whatever, or very often podcasts have come in handy because screen time also remains a very huge issue. So sometimes podcasts do help in different ways. Again, everything can come in handy, but it's important to ensure learning outcomes are achieved and every learner makes progress.
Awesome. I think I was imagining while you were sharing these, I was imagining those classes and the efforts that have gone in. So I again, it's a grand salute to all the teachers who have been doing this. And Raj, I want to get your perspective on how do you think technology can come into play for some people who think this is a big challenge in terms of syllabus coverage.
Sure. Chris. So first of all, I'm really happy to hear Sudhir's answer. That the most important thing is students learning and not the syllabus completion. I'm really happy to hear that, and I'm also fully aligned with that. I think sometimes we oversee students readiness, student proficiency over syllabus completion. So I'll put this question in a different way. That can we do more with less time? That all right, we have less time available. I want to teach more. So what can we do? So a bunch of things which we have experimented with Schoolos and with teachers is the flipped learning, the flipped classroom, and various versions of it. Because it can be done in so many ways, and in my opinion, very few of them work really well. So I'll give you an example of flipped learning, flipped classroom with respect to Schoolos. So we have created a very special format called stories, in which it will take you only 2-3 minutes to go through the full story, and usually 1 or 2 stories. The content inside them will be enough for entire class. So for a student, it will only take 5 minutes for like a day before to go through the story, and he'll be like a lot more ready for the class. Because you can only do more, you can only teach more when students have already learned bunch of things, when they have already learned trivial things. Now teacher is there to help them overcome more complex stuff and help them with their doubts. And that's the only case where you can do more with less time available. And I think that's why if you have like very carefully crafted content to drive your flipped classroom, you can actually achieve your syllabus completion like in time, even if you have missed a bunch of classes, or you can finish your syllabus maybe a month before, and then give kids time for a month to do something else. So yeah, I think it's more about how do you get into a position where you can teach more things in a lot lesser time.
Awesome. Got your point. So we have spoken, I think, about various techniques that have been used during this time. So I would love to get a feel of what the audience have been doing, and which of the following teaching techniques have you or your teachers applied in your classrooms. So this is the third poll we would like to share with the audience. And just wait for a few seconds before we move on to Q&A from the audiences. I think we have a few already. I can see real-time competition between flipped and peer learning. So I think somehow these techniques are interrelated, of course. So it's tough to vote between these, but I'm glad I'm seeing peer learning, which already Dr. Amrita and Raj mentioned, and Sudhir agreed to. So before we take the first question, I would like to announce that please fill out the feedback form so that we have your details, and we can also email your participation certificate to you. So some people asked in the questions about this also. So please do that via this link on your screen. Yeah, so I think one question I liked is from the audience is that if we are not cognizant of portion completion, how can we handle the loss of information at any grade level and learning gap later on? So Sudhir, yeah, you raised your hand like a class, so would love to hear from you.
I was waiting for this question to be taken, and I'm dying to answer this. So I think, this is exactly what needs to change. When you say we are not cognizant of the portion completion, the first thing that you have in your mind is that there is a portion which you're wanting to complete. I don't have a portion. If I were to talk about myself, I'm almost nearing 40 years of age now. There are 10 things that I know in my life, but there are 90 things which I don't know in my life. Then the next part of the question says loss of information. Which loss of information are we talking about? Life, throughout our life, is a continuous learning process. A very small, minuscule part of it is what we cover in our schools, which are probably fundamental, blocks which we need to build. That could be in terms of numeracy, literacy, certain awareness of the environment, certain scientific terms and jargons, etc., etc., etc. None of us, even if our classrooms have completed 100% portion, remember that 100%. So loss of information is going to be there even if you have completed 100% syllabus. Yeah, and that syllabus, like Amrita ma'am was saying, every person, every publisher, everybody has defined it according to his or her own understanding. So the point here is there is no portion. Everyone has his own definition of the portion. I think we need to create one definition for our own kids. A child who's going to study in 3 different countries will have a different portion. A child studying in a rural school in India will have a different portion. A child studying in 3 different metro cities in India will have a different portion. So the point that I wanted to establish here is there is no portion. We need to carve out an individual portion for every child. And that's what is the most important part.
Yeah. And I before I move on to the next question I shortlisted, I think just want to remind you all attendees about the feedback form. So hope you got the link on the screen.
Yeah, Utkarsh, I want to just add to a little thing.
Please. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so, just adding to what Sudhir already said, and I totally agree with Sudhir's answer here. Just adding is that, in all the most progressive curriculums across the globe, and our national education policy is also moving in the same direction, pointing everyone in the same direction, is that portion is actually something personalized to a child. If we look at the primary years program, or if we look at the whole transdisciplinary approach or inquiry-based learning, the idea is the concept matters, the hooks matter, and from there, each child may pick out or really add elements that we may not have thought of, because everyone's context is different, everyone's situation is different, and really their learning needs to be aligned with that. Only then it will be the most useful for them. And information today is available at the click of a button. Who are we to teach any information? Are we better than Google? No. So here we are.
Got it. I think a related question to what Sudhir and you mentioned sometime during the webinar was any apps for very, very young learners to grab attention and not tech savvy?
Not to the learners who are not tech savvy?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a whole lot of apps that we use in classrooms. I think Kahoot and quizzes, etc. have already been mentioned. Children have been using Sway very happily to present their work, especially during any kind of, we have these student-led conferences where children present their work. So Sway comes in very handy. They put all their work. For teachers, Padlet is a really powerful app where when the teacher usually puts out, supposing a teacher wants to share a video, supposing a teacher wants to share some content that she wants children to read or watch beforehand, she can do it that way and then take the class forward, and then the children's reflections around it can also be put there. Any relevant resources can also be put there. Teacher can have many people working at the same time while the teacher or have also is looking at it and assessing it. Teacher can also have people working on it at the same time in different breakout rooms and putting their collaborative thoughts together in that piece, and the teacher can have an access to all of it at one go, or at one glance, which is very often so needed, just like, and so it does help you feel like if you were in groups with working with children in groups and so on. So those, and then Neopod comes in very handy, has a whole lot of tools, and you can plan a whole lesson within Neopod. You can have something on induction, you can have something in the middle, and you can also bring in lots of differentiation, etc. One app that's worked very well for us is Read Theory, specifically when it comes to reading. And alongside now, Immersive Reader has come in by Microsoft, which is also very, very useful, and they have recently further enhanced it. So that's again very handy. Mentimeter is very cool, children love it. And it's a really good way to let children really think of concepts or ideas and thoughts succinctly. Sometimes too many words is not really the answer. Just putting something in, just thinking of 5 words to describe something can really get the child thinking. And so those kind of apps work well with children, even with young children. Within every app, there is a whole lot of permutation combination possible these days, so that you can sort of adapt it to different age groups. And of course, there are some that are more for older children. Parley Ideas works very well. We use it fairly frequently. And of course, then there are very subject-specific apps for different subjects. Some for science, some for so the best way to go about it is genuinely have teachers working in subject groups and let them explore every week something or the other new, because the teacher in the classroom knows the thing that she or he needs, what's working, what doesn't. And when they share with each other, the best possible apps are used in the real-time classroom.
Yeah, and I think that's a practice not just in India but globally, and I think that's the better way to kind of bring in the or I would say the filter the better tools out. So thanks for that. Before I move on to the last question, because we are short on time, I just remembered about because we talked about teacher training. So if you are looking for training your teachers on the latest tech tools, just fill this form for free teacher training for your schools, and we move on to the last question. Yeah, so the question is how to make students independent during online teaching, especially for primary level. So any one of you would like to take it? Sudhir, Raj, Dr. Amrita.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Children are quite naturally independent. It is we who really try to control them. We try telling them, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, and don't do that. I think if we just allow them to be themselves, honestly, they are born with technology, and it's way easier for them than it is for us adults. We often need help, and very often when you'll observe any classroom today, you'll find children telling the teacher, ma'am, oh, aise nahi, aise share hoga. Ma'am, try this, it'll work. So children are born in this. Every generation is smarter than the previous one. They are independent. It is we who need to learn to not control, try and exert control and try and be okay, smarter adults. We are not. We really need to learn more from children. And believe me, the minute you let them see that the teacher is genuinely, and today teachers have moved that sage on stage to facilitators of learning, to actually now co-learners. The moment they feel that the teacher is with us, helping us like a buddy, also a friend, just a more knowledgeable other right here perhaps, to help if I need, and if I go wrong somewhere, my teacher will ensure that, that she'll manage, she'll help me. That free space is all that child needs, and that's how they grow. Even when they learn to walk, that's how they learn. So just parents just create that space where hopefully when they fall, they'll be okay, they won't hurt themselves too much, right? Or too so that's what they need. But we can't stop them from it. We can't keep holding their feet and their arms to help them walk. If we do that, they never learn. They are naturally independent. They may not get it the first time, but they will. And they get it better than us. You have to see my students, how independent they are. Initially, parents felt, kaise hoga? All of us, I think, felt, how will children do this? But now I see parents saying stuff like, this kid gets up at, there is a family that shifted to another country. So for them, our time here and their time there, for that child, classes actually begin at 5 a.m. in the morning. And the mother tells me the child gets up at 4, gets ready, all set, doesn't let us pick up, and is right there all doing it. And this kid is in grade 2. Yeah. So you can imagine, that's how independent children actually are the minute you allow them.
Awesome. I just want to, I think maybe the last question of the day, and before we wrap up, and I think we mentioned this question towards the starting of the webinar. So Sudhir, would you like to take this question? Learning without textbooks.
Well, of course, that's another thing which is something that I'm really passionate about. And I think what I'd like to add here is, I'd like to address the genesis of this question. Why is this question actually popped up on this forum? This question has popped up on this forum because 99% of our students studying in India are either studying in a CBSE school or an ICSE school or a state board school. Yeah. And all of these boards, unfortunately, advocate teaching by textbooks or through a syllabus, etc. But trust me, I'm addressing all the audiences here. It's not a new thought. It's not something revolutionary. It's not something ridiculous to think of teaching without textbooks. If you were to go to that less than 1% schools in India, which are now affiliated to what is so-called IB board in India, IB board by design doesn't have textbooks. There are no textbooks in an IB school. They have an inquiry model, they have case studies, they have things. And if you look at IB schools globally, there are no textbooks available there. So they will take references from online research, making their notes, doing surveys, and all those kind of things. And that's truly what I would like to, see us all progressing in that so-called classroom 2.0, where we go and break these shackles of defined curriculum, defined objectives, and defined stuff, and go beyond textbook. And trust me, it's a truly remarkable way of learning. Somebody asked, has anybody in the speakers actually, studied something without textbook? I have. When this question was asked, I actually went back to my MBA days. The professor who was teaching us economics, he brought a copy of Economic Times and he said, today RBI has reduced the repo rate by 0.5%. Tell me, how does it affect your life? Simple. That's the question. No textbook, nothing. And that was the question given in my examination paper also. So that was, trust me, I mean, all of us are given hundreds of examinations throughout our life. I remember that one professor till date, that was the most amazing practical question paper ever created. He said, this is the newspaper headline 3 days ago, and he had told us in advance, your question paper will be based on Economic Times and not your textbook. So this is what was written or said by so-and-so RBI governor 3 days ago. Tell me the impact of this on macroeconomics, microeconomics, your life, bank, industry, etc., etc. That's your true learning. That's what is understanding, learning from your going beyond the textbook and learning from your practical environment and making it relevant, to the times. That's what I think even Amrita ma'am was mentioning. The new jobs, the new curriculum which is going to come after 10 years, we don't even know. So if we keep our learning and teaching relevant to the modern times and the current affairs, and learn and teach from that perspective, I believe it will make our teaching learning process far more effective than confining ourselves to certain textbooks.
Agree. Raj, any of your thoughts on this, or any closing remarks before we wrap up?
No, actually, for that question, I was looking forward to Sudhir's response.
Awesome. So I think it has been a great session, and I, in fact, myself learned a lot of new names, new tools, and new strategies. So I'm sure the audience must have enjoyed the session. So I would like to thank each one who attended, took out time from their busy schedule, and especially the panelists, Dr. Amrita, Sudhir, Raj. Thank you so much for your time and efforts in building this and making it a success. So thank you so much.